the first addiction is to the mind. And if you're going out into the woods and you can't sit with your own mind, it's hard to sit with the world. If like your closest advisor is not serving you, then the world's not going to work.
Here with Tim O. Davis.
That's me.
Spiritual coach, mindful teacher, and course leader who has spent over 30 years immersed in the teachings of Michael A. Singer at the Temple of the Universe.
Yeah.
His work focuses on helping people move beyond fear, emotional reactivity, and the constant chatter of the mind into deeper experience of peace, awareness, and freedom. Welcome, Tim, to On the Rise.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, man. Is that a pretty good summary?
That'll do it. That'll do it. Absolutely. Yeah. That's it.
I probably left some stuff out, but
we'll get to it.
Awesome, man. Well, Tim, I'm really excited to meet you, and I have seen you in the multiple times I've been to the Temple of the Universe. I'll tell you, when my wife and I drove out there, we had read Untethered Soul. And I read The Surrender Experiment. And I'd seen him on Tony Robbins' interview, which was one of my favorite all time. And then I also, Oprah Winfrey, I remember seeing Super Soul Sunday.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, when we met, it was so funny. We had all these books that, typical personal development people, a lot of them were half read. We had both. Mm-hmm. And as we're getting married, we're consolidating everything. We're just laughed over. We're both super into personal development, always trying to figure ourselves out, through it. And anyway, I had said to her, I was like, hey, he's out in Gainesville. And I was like, we should take a ride out there. And it was almost like out of the movie. Like when we went there, it was literally like I remember reading The Surrender Experiment more than Untethered Soul. Mm-hmm. To see that it was really there. And to read it, it was like exactly, and it looked the same as what I read. And we didn't know what to expect. And walking in there, it was kind of like, it really is weird. And I try to claim myself as not one of those like starstruck people, or like, I'm not going to run up and get an autograph, but that's my ego, even in that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember us whispering, there's Michael Singer. And then you were there. And I remember seeing some people that seemed like they knew what they were doing. And I remember us walking out even on the acreage, like looking at deer, and it was really quiet and everything. My wife and I were like pinching, we're like, we can't believe, we've read his books. We know a lot about him. We know these other people look really up to him, like Tony and Oprah. And we're like, we live an hour and a half away from him. And then to see that actually, and I know Gainesville well, I live in St. Augustine. I grew up in Lake Mary. And I was like, he really did all this from right here. Like, this is wild. And anyway, so it was a really surreal experience. And then we ended up going out there. And then it was a lot more comfortable, actually, than what we thought as we got going a couple times. It actually was really neat. So one of the times I was working down in South Florida, my wife and I were getting ready to get married, and we would meet there. She would drive over from St. Augustine. I was down in Port Charlotte doing some work, and I was there for like a month or two, and that was our meeting place. And I ran into Rob Colwell, who a personal friend of mine, which was crazy. He was coming down from Philly. We knew each other from different lives, and we were different people, both of us, as we found out. And he was there, I was there, we said hi, and then neither one of us knew, as I did this podcast, and I've been in, I quit drinking like 7 years ago, which was part of, more of it really has been a very big spiritual healing for me, more than I would even imagine, or even when I got into it. We talked, and he said I should reach out to you, and it was really cool. And anyway, so welcome, and you're here.
Thank you. Yeah. I love Rob. He's a great friend and somebody we've worked together quite a bit. And he's grown a lot. We both have. And it's really beautiful to see how his influence spreads. He's helped a lot of people, and he's always doing everything he can to, share. It's beautiful. I had the same experience. You talked about discovering the temple. And my story is that back in 1990, I was going to the University of Florida or I graduated from the University of Florida as a photojournalism major, and I have a degree in photography or photojournalism. And I was working at the Gainesville Sun, and my wife and I just were told by a friend, "Hey, you should go check out this place called Temple of the Universe." And of course, back in '91 or back then, it was kind of the same experience you talked about, except there was no history. There was like there was no internet, there was no cell phones, there was none of that stuff, and right. And so we go out, and it was like, what it's like. You go out road after road, and the roads get smaller. And back then, some of them were even still dirt roads. And so we came out and found the place, and I had the same experience, although I didn't have sort of the Oprah history or the Tony Robbins history. I had something inside was looking for what he was talking about, right? This way of experiencing the world, feeling energy inside. And I remember, like, I had no context for what he talked about, what Michael Singer talked about, or any of that. But when we went in, we just felt immediately, like you said, at peace. And of course, back then, it was getting like maybe 20% of the people that show up now. Like when you went, the room was packed full, and you were like, shoulder to shoulder with people. And back then, you actually had space, and you could kind of spread out and even lay down if you wanted to. And I just remember, listening to him talk, and of course he was, gosh, he would have been in his, 40s, 30s, 40s back then. That it was the most imaginative and crazy cool talks, and he had this incredible experience. He learned a lot about Sigmund Freud, and he learned a lot about yoga and spiritual teachers and gurus, and he just did this whole mix that was super practical for how you live your daily life and how you live. And that was the thing that really attracted me, was the sense that like these are not just about, on Sunday, like some spiritual thing or religious thing that happens on Sunday. This is a way to feel and experience the energy of life and move through. And it became really powerful for me. I was fortunate that I was starting my career as a photojournalist right at the moment that I discovered the temple. And that was also just as he was starting his work with Medical Manager, which became WebMD, which became the whole medical practice that he did. Or not medical practice, but medical records, et cetera. And our work was really powerful because I got to learn as I was doing it. So I'd hear him talk, and I'd hear the lessons, and I'd go to work every day, and I would just like, okay, here it goes. I'm putting this into effect. So it was a really great experience. Feel very fortunate.
Sorry to go back. Were you part of the WebMD? Did you work with them outside of there, or no? You would just go to work?
No, my wife did, and she worked with him for years and years. And I was in the journalism world, and I would go, I would live in the temple experience. I would do all of the work of the temple and the schedule, et cetera, which we'll go into a little later. But then I would go to work. And at first, I would drive from Gainesville out to Alachua, which is about a 20-minute drive. We do our morning session at 6:30 a.m. And I would drive all the way back to Gainesville and go to work at the newspaper and do a full day shift, of tracking down photography and news and all that. And then go back out to the temple for the evening. And it became a real, you know how it is when you're on a football team or a sports team? Like, when you do two-a-days, I don't know if you're familiar with that grind, but it's like,
very well.
It was like that, right? It was just like you're part of this team and you're part of this group, and every bit of your energy and focus is about, finding this source inside and finding how to kind of work with yourself to find peace. And it was an amazing time of my life. I'm so grateful that's somehow I stumbled into that reality.
That is incredible. That is, and it is incredible. My daughter, go Gators! My daughter's leaving
Yeah.
for 2 weeks to start school there. She just got accepted she just got accepted and actually goes summer
Oh,
semester.
congratulations.
I'll be over there more. I'm really excited about that actually, and but it is incredible that you're at University of Florida. You're over by there, and this guy that is teaching these lessons, And as he's building WebMD like this, you would think it's in Silicon Valley or something like that. It's right
Yeah.
here in Florida. That's what struck me with the Surrender Experiment was reading that like he actually, um, and I will say, and actually we were talking about this, and I did not mean to even say this when we were talking briefly before. I like to learn. I learn trust is a very big thing for me, and it's like it's very easy to say, "Hey, do this, do this, do this," and your life's great and you have no challenges going on. But one thing I always loved when I read Surrender Experiment was that he actually, correct me if I'm wrong, he wrote that while he was having challenges with that WebMD and was facing indictments and everything else like that, but chose to continue to surrender during it. And that's what the book's, a lot of it's about, is as he's going through things, he's writing,
Yeah.
the story of it. And you're a part of it, and you saw it, and you witnessed it all firsthand.
All of it, yeah. And in fact, it actually created some really interesting, situations because, so when I first started, regularly attending and becoming part of the community there, it was just getting started. Like his work with, medical software was just getting started. And it's quite a story. So if you haven't read the Surrender Experiment, to anybody who may be listening to this, it's a really beautiful story. Yeah.
It is unbelievable. Two of the biggest impacted books, Untethered Soul and Surrender Experiment. Absolutely.
And so I was there, and I was watching the whole thing happen, and I got to see, firsthand how, like, his work on himself and the practices of meditation and the things that we do, like, just to kind of create this stillness inside, became the source of how he, worked with the world. And I watched that happen, and that became my example. That became the thing I aspired to do, was to, find that same thing inside me so that I can then go out into my personal world and, exhibit those same strengths, learn it for myself. And to watch him go through such an extreme example, because he built that into a quite a valuable company. I think he sold. I have to check this, but I think he sold it. Eventually the company sold for $1 billion, and that was in 1999. So it was a real thing. And to watch him go through all that was really powerful, because he essentially had a small construction business before that, and it just like went and step and step and step, and just see, like, as I look back on it, I go, how the hell did that happen? Like, how do you get those skills to become like a CEO of a $multi-million company and like deal with
Excellent.
all these people? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just to watch, and the thing that I'll say, Pete, is that the practices and the work that he did on himself are truly the source of, at least what I saw, how I perceived, watching, from up close. That's how he ran it. Like, he really, if you want to call it God or source or your higher power, he always made that his pole star value. He always made that the thing that he leaned into most. And then everything around the business world stemmed from that commitment.
That's what I gathered from it. And my wife, I've been fortunate to be blessed with a very, very There's always. It seems like this again is just my hallucination, but sometimes women have more intuition. I think in my case, it's good to have a. My wife feels things more, and she kind of knows what's best for me before I know what's best for me. Sometimes,
Yeah.
vast majority of times, is a little bit more in touch. And spiritually, I, it's funny. I get frustrated with certain things in our relationship, but the spiritual stuff, I know she's dead on a lot of stuff before me, and it's really
Yeah.
interesting. I read these books before her. I went into it, and she says she always reminds me, because I'm like ambitious, and we have 5 kids. We live in St. Augustine. A lot of it is like she's like, remember, Mickey did all that from Gainesville. He surrendered to it. He didn't have to go to all these places. He did it. You could be happy wherever you are. And
That's
there's
right.
like I go to that. Like, I'm like frustrated. It's like, I gotta travel. I wish I could go to this place. She's like, but it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't. He did that all from right there, and it all is an illusion. Like, it's those wisdom parts
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, and she's like, remember, and it's funny, I can't remember a lot of things, but I do remember a lot of the Surrender Experiment, and I might twist it with Untethered Soul, but that book had such an impact on me of, surrendering to the moment, surrendering to the opportunities, and I forgot about his construction company, it built with love or something like that, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
surrendered to that, and then he was the professor at the school, and he surrendered to the bank, meeting the bank guy, and he didn't want to do it, he did it anyway.
Yeah.
Like this is life, surrender to life, and
Hmm.
these opportunities come, and I think that's it must have been just incredible experience to be a part of it, but then to implement it, it's not just like a guru that you're going, hey, I worship this guy, so I get it. You have to practically put these lessons into your life.
Well, yeah, I want to break in right there because like the thing that made me feel comfortable going to the temple and being around him was that he wasn't an object of worship. He was just a dude, right? And it's like again, if we go to the team idea, he was like a coach player, is how I would put it, and so on one hand, he's leading as a coach, but more importantly, he was living it. And obviously that's where I really learned. And he never like asked for any kind of reverence or put himself on a pedestal. And that to me is what made it work because it's like, you're out there on a field playing a game, doing your sports, and like you see somebody like giving it up for the team, like just sacrificing. You want to do that too, and it creates this vibration, and it creates this energy of where we're all in this together. And what you said about the relationship that you have with your wife and how she provides energy to you spiritually, it's really important. And you talked, I believe, about the 12 steps too, like 12-step programs, right? If that's I actually teach a course combining the 12 steps and the untethered soul. And we can talk more about that later. But the thing is, like, we need a support system. And he was the point of that support system. And it was the whole community where we learn and we see each other as models and we fall into the energy of we're doing this together. And that's how you create like real change instead of like just being pulled into like a bad church is how I'm going to say, where like you get kind of sucked into like a way of being that's very limited. This is very open, right? And I think that's important because he's not a guru and he doesn't want to be one. I love him for that, and that's a point of respect for me for sure.
Yeah, and you could feel that when you go there. It's not like I think even again, we talked about this earlier before we even got on. There's a lot of words and dogma that get us tripped up from
Yeah,
for rightfully so. I mean, that's been the world that we've all grown up in. So you have these instincts that go up and go, wait a second, what is this about? And I think you hear Temple of the Universe or Temple or whatever else. I mean, there's like a truth
yeah,
you don't even know where it comes from, right? And then when you go there, oh, sorry for that. You go there and you don't even you have these perceived notions, but
yeah.
it really is and he's very clear about it too. It's your walk on this planet. I mean, it's your reality. There's no
Yeah,
magic formula that you're gonna get. It's the voice is in everybody's head.
that's right.
It's a voice and it's very real. You can ignore it, you can say it, you can be kind to it, whatever, but we're
Mm.
all dealing with that chatter, I think, to some extent.
Oh my God, yes, Pete. The thing that I've seen, I work with many successful people who have created lots of economic wherewithal for themselves, right? And the thing that I've seen is that it starts often as a fear-based drive, right? Of I'm not enough, I'm never going to have enough. If I don't have enough money, I'm going to be like, I'm not going to have a family. I'm not going to. And the thing that's like that I see from Michael Singer is that he he lived from a place of devotion and positivity and commitment to raising himself instead of fear, right? Instead of like acting out of not having enough and acting out like he wasn't earning money to create a bigger person or to create insulation from the world. He was just working. Like he was working out of love and serving, and that's what created this space where the money just poured in. I mean, poured in, right? That's the lesson. It's not fear. And so the thing that I like to do is help people. Like you talk about that inner voice, right? In the Untethered Soul, he calls it the inner roommate, right? Like learning how to work with that voice and learning how to work with your heart creates the conditions so that fear can be released, because anxiety is the product of all that listening to fear, and it becomes a habit of being in fear to motivate yourself.
It's so true. And it's like, and yes, you might get results on the outside, but you're miserable in the process of it. I definitely lived in that, and I lived in, like, it's like questioning your motives. And there is something, and this is a 12 step, which we'll go into it. We keep foreshadowing different things. We could,
Yeah.
it's a great conversation. And but like you learn that like acceptance is the answer to all, acceptance is, that's the path on a lot of things. And somehow in the world we're taught don't accept, fight, fight, fight. And yes, you might get results in certain ways, but you can also get results a softer way. And you can get like with like acceptance is the answer to all my problems, right? And
Yeah.
that's what the surrender, again, words do mean something, but surrender
Hmm.
means acceptance to me in a lot of ways. Like
You know,
things.
one of the things that really was powerful for me is that it is softer, like the inner dialogue, the way you work with yourself, the way you talk to yourself, you coach yourself. And that turns out to be softer, right? Because most of what we do when we act out of fear is to beat the crap out of ourselves. Like, I suck. And if I don't get my ass out of bed right now, I'm going to fall behind.
Absolutely.
so, so what I saw from Michael Singer and what I learned for myself was that inner voice can be loving, can be kind and supportive. But the part of you that fights and works and strives, like that can come from enthusiasm and joy and love for source, love for God, love for Jesus, love for Buddha, love for Muhammad, love for whomever, you serve, and how you feel is the source of your world, your higher power. You can fight for that, but the internal world doesn't have to be a fight. The internal world can be one of acceptance.
That's yeah, and you're living with yourself all the time. I think he said
Yeah.
it too, or it might have been Bruce Lipton. I'm not sure, but I think he said it in one of his books, that he was like arguing with himself on the couch or something like that, was with like an ex or somebody, but they weren't even there. And he's like, "What the heck am I doing?" It's like 2
Yeah.
hours, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've had these fake arguments in my head, and especially gotten stuck. I mean, I've gotten stuck for years at different things, and it's not even real, and it's not even like it's not even present. It doesn't even, and it's whatever meaning I put to it. But it's like that voice is like it's like you're like, what the? I'm sitting on a couch. I'm safe right now.
Hmm.
I'm right
Hmm.
here in this moment, but and there's no power in that argument like that I'm having, and it's a really uncomfortable place of being.
Yeah, it is. It's he talks about that. He called that in a way I experience is he calls it a blockage, right? Like if you take the experience of having like a beautiful moment and the heart opens, like you get up in the morning and there's a beautiful sunrise and your spouse, your partner is loving and you've got a great, like you walk out into the day charged up and enthusiastic, right? Like that's a source of energy. When you walk into the day having sit on the couch having an internal argument with with somebody who's not even there, that's a terrible way to start the day. And the energy that comes from that is completely different. Like everybody that you face now is a reflection of It's like you're wearing shit colored glasses, basically, right? You can have rose colored glasses, and the attitude. Everybody talks about attitude's the most important thing. Well, that's the root of attitude. That's the beginning of attitude. That's the beginning of how you perceive your day, and whether challenges are just little speed bumps that you have are big enough and you can overcome them, or whether they're real setbacks. And one is an ever building source of energy that you carry forth as part of your vision. The other is an ever declining sense of stress and pain and anxiety, because you're using anxiety, stress, and pain to power you forward, but that just conditions you to need more stress to keep succeeding, right?
Yeah, it's wow, it's true. It's a very that's the life challenge, right? I also love. This is so funny, man. I have such a bad memory, but as we're talking, I can like sit there and I'm thinking of different things he says, listening to it. Is one thing that my wife and I always talk about that we're trying, like, he's like, just start with something easy, like traffic, right? That's
Yeah, yeah,
one. And then, you know, like for people like me, I'll just speak for myself. Like if I'm not perfect, it doesn't work, or I shouldn't do it. But it's like a lot of it I'm learning as being human, right? It's like how fast. Yes, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to lose my center, that bliss that I could feel inside. But it's like how long do I choose to stay in that state? Like how fast
yeah,
can I get back to it? And that's progress for me. Is like
yeah, absolutely.
staying it, and that's a way to live that like just makes it. And honestly, it makes it not just for me being happy, but the people around me being
Oh
happy.
my God.
You know, and like not living.
That's the
Sorry.
that's the real power, right? As you work the way you're talking about, Peter, like where you're feeling your inner energy move and you're working to respond and act from your higher energy, your higher, like closer to your higher power, instead of being driven by fear, like your family feels that. Like that creates the vibration that your family lives in. You know what it's like. And it's like you talk about being kind with yourself and raising yourself. And how would you teach your son to do something he'd never done before? Like, would you be, you're an ass, you're terrible, that's how we talk to ourselves. We would never talk to our loved ones like that. But yet, if we don't monitor the way we talk to ourselves, we're planting the seeds of that kind of, disturbed energy. And how many times you know this, from the different support groups and different, groups that you work with, how many people work so hard and commit themselves to success and then don't like the life they've built as a result of that?
I had another conversation with a really good friend of mine going through it. We were just talking about like certain people that get sober, for instance, right? But they're miserable.
Yeah,
They're miserable doing it. Or dieting is another one. Like how many people do you know that are on a diet all the time and they're fighting
yeah,
it and fighting it and fighting it, or like this? But literally, I see it a lot, like with the sobriety stuff, that they're just like they're miserable. They really
yeah,
are. They're not drinking, but they're miserable. It's like you're better off drinking at that stage. It's like if you're going to be miserable and fight it, it's not work. You got to find another way,
yeah,
of doing it.
right.
Like is that you're happy with yourself. And same thing with the dieting, like, and it's like reprogramming yourself, doing these things that food, nutritious, whatever it is. But it's like I think that's like that's one of the ones that you see in our culture today. People doing things, but they're not happy doing it, and it never lasts because it's so much willpower that it's like very hard to do. It's very hard to do.
It's hard until it's not.
Yes.
Like it starts with a very simple understanding that we have a voice in our head, and it's genetically and it's been designed to protect us from unsafety or risk. And as entrepreneurs, our job is to perceive all the risks and see all the places where our business and our endeavors could go bad. And the mind is infinitely powerful in creating and seeing all of the risks, the catastrophization, right? All that. So the ability to see that happen and then step away from it, it takes time and practice. And this is what I help people with, is that when you turn and you start to recognize the futility of trying to fuel your energy with fear and doubt, then you can start to reverse that. And what happens is, instead of losing weight because you look in the mirror and you hate yourself, or you see the drunken aspect of yourself and you hate that, you see the truth of who you are. Like, we are all the same. You know, the kingdom of heaven is within us, you know, that we are God made manifest. These and greater things shall you do. It's in here already. So you learn to love that spark of life and connection that connects you with your higher power. And you want to take care of your body because you love yourself. You want to take care of yourself. You want to feed yourself good food. You want to exercise. You want to not drink to excess because you want to be whole, and you want to be in a better place to love those around you and raise those around you and raise the self. And that's a thing that Michael Singer talks about. You raise the self with the self. But if the self is pissed off at you all the time and you're used to using the self to raise you through fear, that's what you're going to end up with, is anxiety, because it just continues the process of making you afraid every moment. It grinds you. It depletes you. You wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. and you can't sleep. You can't fall asleep at night, and everything just feels crappy. And there's ways to work with that, practical ways to work with that. That's what I like to help people with.
Yeah, I mean, this is good stuff. Man, that is, I actually, and again, we'll go to it, but I could definitely see where your program helps people with, you know, the addictions and stuff like that, because it is so. I mean, you are speaking and cutting through a bunch of stuff that's like, wow, it's so true. It's so true. And as you're going through it, sometimes you just can't see it, or you don't believe it, or your perspective's off, you know, and you just don't have it. One of the things I wanted to ask you before that, though, was what's the biggest personal transformation you've seen in yourself over the past 30 years of working? I mean, you've dedicated, you know, the vast majority of your adult life, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm 66, and I was on,
You look,
part of the core.
I was gonna guess honestly a lot younger. It's crazy. Yeah.
I swear, like, I think a lot of it has to do with just that's one of the aspects of this work that I don't worry as much as I used to. It's actually really nice.
I
So
mean,
the personal
incredible.
go
That's
ahead.
an incredible way to live, though. I mean, worry and
Yeah.
stress are the number one destroyers. You know,
Yeah.
they lead to everything else. So, like, to not worry. I mean, you don't have wrinkles. That's great.
You know, when you're conditioned yourself to work from fear, you just carry that around all the time. And it takes work, and,
Yeah.
it's just like, if you want to be a good football player, if you want to be a good athlete, if you want to, you do push-ups. Like, we'll just start with basic push-ups. And so you start to meditate. And what does that do? Well, you start to see the traffic that's going on in your own mind, right? You just see how you're coaching yourself, how you're talking to yourself, this inner roommate, right? And I would say that's ties into the biggest transformation, was that once I started to become aware of that voice, I was able to relax with it. So, like, my voice, we all have an inner voice. So you get up in the morning or you go to bed at night, just, wow, you screwed up. You shouldn't have done whatever. And I started to catch that, and I would breathe, literally just catch the voice and breathe. And it creates a little bit of space between the energy of shame or anxiety or self-hatred, that would come up. And I would just start to recognize it. And the biggest transformation was, because of this work that I have done and continue to do, I have space, so that it's almost like if you have somebody riding in the car and they're constantly barraging you with terrible, like, you suck and you do this and you're driving. Like, at some point, at mile 3 or 4, you start to disregard what they say because it's always the same. It's always negative, and it's just not true. And that's how I started to see this inner voice. And believe me, it was lots of shame-based everything in here, about everything. And as I started to get a little bit of space between that, I was able to question it, right? And say, wow, that isn't actually factually true. And I would see, like, like everything, I had projects at work, where there was lots of fear and doubt. And I would start to see my mind obsess about them. And I would see, yes, there is truth to the fear and the doubt and the possibility of disaster that we all live with every day, right? But that's just a tiny aspect of the truth. There is another truth. And, there's a lot of talk, Peter, about manifestation and opening, your awareness so that goodness can come in. It starts with the recognition that you aren't allowing space for goodness to come in when you're obsessing about negativity, right? So that's the biggest transformation, just seeing that. And once awareness happens, and once you start to see that voice happening, then like it changes your relationship with your higher power, right? And your subconscious starts to clear, and you start to let go of the negativity, the traumas, and often is generational trauma, like the sins of the father in the Bible. It talks about the sins of the father been passed on to the son, and you start to heal from that, and it changes everything, and it opens like a whole new range of possibilities. And that's incredibly important because no one wants to pass that on to their kids. So this awareness is like super important. And just one last thing, like I've done lots of volunteer work in prison, right? Which is something Mickey did, Michael did, and like that was my example. And when you spend time intimately talking and working with inmates, you see how little difference there is between being caught in prison and caught in the prison of the mind and caught in the prison of alcoholism or caught in the prison of addiction. It's all just this series of limiting beliefs. And the starting point isn't to pile more optimism on top of it, but to allow yourself to go through the process of letting the negativity, the pain, the trauma, the old things come up and seeing them and releasing them. And it all starts with just that drip, the moment by moment, understanding of what that voice is saying. When you can see that, then naturally you don't believe it. You let it fall away. But it takes time and persistence and a community to support you and a community that shares the same language. That's why AA is a powerful thing, because you've got a group that you live with and believe in, and you all have a very similar mission, and you reaffirm each other's belief.
Tim, you hit on the generational trauma and everything, and the only other place I really have heard that before is in the like psychedelic, like shaman type places like ayahuasca and some of these things that have become popular of recent. They're ancient ceremonies that have become more
I'm
mainstream.
very familiar. Yes.
Yeah, where do you guys work along with that? Is that something that you like? What's your thoughts on that? Is it necessary, or is it just another tool that you could use in the toolbox? Or what's your thoughts, or even understanding of
So yeah, so I'm right now, like a lot of what I've been talking about is what I've learned from Michael Singer and the group. And now I'm going to step into my own world because I don't want to, this is my own belief understanding. I've had an opportunity to work with some really high people in this world in some of the finest facilities of plant medicine and entheogens that are out there.
Sure.
And so my history is from the temple, and that's purely internal work, right? And the ethnogenic world kind of came along later in my path, like the idea of doing mushrooms or psilocybin, LSD, or whatever, right?
Sure.
And here's how I see it. This is what, and I'm working on this now. I'm actually working with a group now. I give talks for this group that does this kind of work. When you do spiritual work, when you have a relationship with Christ or, whatever your spiritual realm is, and I respect and love all of them, you're accepting that there is a higher power. And that's not hard to do, really. If you look at the earth and the planets, the earth is a perfect distance from the sun, so we don't get fried, but there's so many miracles in just the daily existence. That your car starts every morning, frankly, is a miracle. Like, and so everything is a miracle in a very real way. Our daily lives are it's easy to lose sight of the fact that there's so much mystery of origin happening around us. And so when you do spiritual work, when you go to church and you have like a moment where, you accept Christ in your life or whatever that means for you, however you go, it's a miracle and there's mystery. And in your subconscious, we're conditioned in many ways, like just that old tape playing of we suck and we're not good and all that. It's hard to believe in ourselves a lot of the time. And that's like one of the problems I see with addiction is that like the noise inside is so profound of not believing that we have to drown it out with some distraction, food, sex, drugs, alcohol. There's a whole bunch of them, tons of them. So the world of plant medicine, the world of spirituality, miracles and mystery are around us, and it's an access point. And when a miracle happens, or sometimes there are gurus and there are teachers and there are moments when you go to the altar and somebody puts their hand on you and you feel the Holy Spirit or the Shakti or whatever it is. It's a transformational moment because you see beyond yourself. You see into the mystery of the world, and that changes your perspective. And it allows you to experience something greater than yourself, right? And you can see, like I've seen with plant medicine, people go to go to an altar with a question and it gets answered. Like they have some experience. So that's my way of saying that we need that mystery, Peter. We need that sense that there's God, something bigger than us. We need to have a relationship with it because when we see ourselves as a finite, unconnected entity or being, when we relate to ourselves more as human than spirit, we don't have a chance. There's 8 billion of us on the planet. How am I supposed to be special? How am I supposed to do anything? I'm going to have to fight like a fiend. I'm pulling back my propensity to swear right now. But we have to fight so hard just to stand up for ourselves. We need that sense of mystery to see beyond ourselves. And it's real. Mysterious, beautiful things are happening all the time. So let's tap into that. So what you see when you do plant medicine or you have like one of these miracles is you see, it's almost like you're on a long path, a long hike, and you get to this plateau where you can see your whole future, your whole world laying out before you. And you see the beauty of it. You see like, wow, this is really a magical place. And it helps to settle. It helps to settle our energy. It helps to see beyond the limited perspective of a finite human in a limited lifespan with just this little sense of energy. We are all one. We are all connected to Christ. The kingdom of heaven is within us. We all have our Buddha nature. However you see your higher power, it helps to connect with that and see that as a possibility, a real, tangible thing that you can experience. But we work up to it. And these little moments kind of take us there, but it then kind of brings us back to that moment where we hear the inner voice talking and we have the perspective, say, that's not real. That inner voice, I don't have to buy into that energy. I can relate to something higher and more powerful.
Yeah.
That's it.
I do think I find it like through I love the practice of what we'll go into with the 12 steps and what you're doing. The most difficult step, I think, besides just the first step of actually admitting and coming, and there's something so cleansing in admitting that and just letting go and surrender. That's surrender. That is the surrender experiment. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But is step 11. I hear this the most. Prayer, people are all right with, but almost everybody says meditation is so hard. Like that's the word they use. They go, meditation is hard. So to reverse, because I definitely want to hear all that, but like in plain English, what would you say Untethered Soul is about in your teachings and what you've learned from Michael Singer and what you're what does Untethered Soul mean in plain English?
So I want to tie in what you just said, that meditation is hard. Let's start there to get to the answer, okay? The reason for many people that meditation is hard is that when you intentionally get quiet inside, you'll see how much noise is going on in your being.
Scary.
And you sit for like 5 minutes, and all of a sudden it's just a cacophony of doubt and fear and catastrophization playing out. And that's when we say it's hard. It's not hard to meditate. It's hard to sit with ourselves. That's what's really hard, right?
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because one of my jokes is, well, you just wake up and then you sit up and then you close your eyes.
See,
It's
you know,
like it's hard. I get that you're saying, but it's actually a lot easier.
it's on its face. It's the easiest thing in the world. You know,
Well,
you
you
just
just like
don't do anything.
you do it together and just go like that. Yeah.
But so when you talk about like addiction, it's like the the main addiction we have is to our mind as a distraction from that internal space that is not comfortable,
Yeah.
right? And so, all the degrees of things, like the things that I like to think of it like this. So you can have a relationship with alcohol, you can have a relationship with anything, right? Anything that brings joy to your life. We all like to eat, good food, good, drive nice cars. Just do the things we enjoy to a nice level, whatever that is. But when they become an escape, it can become unhealthy, and we get overly attached to them, right? And that spins out of control because we see that we have a mind and it's, hard to deal with. And this other thing is an escape. And we just like become encultured and conditioned to just keep doing that over and over and over again. And next thing you know, you get out of control. So what do you do when you meditate? It's just doing push-ups, dude. It's like the first push-up's hard and no one likes to do push-ups, but if everybody's doing push-ups, it becomes easier. If everybody's meditating, then you can see that it's possible and you can sit with it and you can start to see what's happening, in your mind and your heart and to allow that space to grow. So the work then is to see how the mind is the tether. That's what it is. The Buddhists have a beautiful way of putting it, and it's all through Psalms, it's all through the Bible, it's everywhere, right? That the mind is a garden and it's planting seeds constantly, and you want to let the seeds grow that you want to grow, and you want to weed out the seeds that aren't serving you. And it's that Native American story about, you've got this one wolf that's like, and then you got the two wolves, and like, which one the one you feed is the one that supports you, right? So you're learning how to support the inner work. And once you have a healthy relationship with this inner world that we all have, like you all have a voice, right? Let me just start for a second. Like if you're listening to this podcast, just sit for a minute. Notice something happening in here. Notice words coming. Why is he pausing? Why is he stopping? I don't believe that. That's the inner voice. That's the inner roommate that we're talking about. And that can be either intentional or unintentional, right? And our work is to make it more intentional so that we have a better relationship with it. So when it says negative things, as it inevitably will, we don't have to be emotionally affected by it. It doesn't have to drive our behavior. It doesn't have to send us to the bar or to the blah, 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 massage, whatever, the thing, just all of that. When we get a better relationship, we can sit with it. And that's the untethering. Like the tether is a sense of being tied and connected to something that's dragging us down, holding us to the earth. Our capacity is infinite. Our energy is infinite. We are nothing but energy, and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. That's the source of our soul. That's the power of the wisdom. That's the silence of the wisdom inside. That is the kingdom of heaven is within you, where you connect. It's infinite. It's infinite power. So when you're tethered, you don't get to experience that. You feel trapped, and you just fall into a cycle of being dragged down. The untethering happens when you start to hear that inner voice and you don't buy into it. You say, oh, that's interesting. And I love the fact that there's a part of me that's trying to save me from some catastrophe. that's not real right now. That's history and it's already passed and I don't have to buy into it, or it's the future. And maybe that's what's going to happen, or maybe it's not going to happen. There's some control I have over it, which is a beautiful thing about AA. It's like you really start to deal with what's under your control and what's not under your control. And you untether from fear over things that are not in your control. Right.
Yeah, you hit on so many things right there. One, the way God works, or whatever. Interesting part. We're talking about meditation, what quote unquote woo woo stuff. What people will, which is so much less woo woo than you really think. Um,
I
the same
agree.
exact story, the wolf, the Native American wolf story, was used at a men's Bible study I was at 6 a.m. this morning, which is
Nice.
really interesting. Was the story of what we feed our mind, which went back to exactly what you said. I have I mean, that's so weird. I've heard that story before, but probably not for 5 years,
Here it is.
or on a meme or something like that. Who knows? Then the other part that you asked, I was sitting there thinking about it as thoughts and sitting there. Is there science behind? Is that why they put you in solitary confinement as a torture to be alone and like that? Is that, I mean, I think because I do, and the other part I was going to ask, my mind's racing with questions just to ask you on this.
Yeah.
I find it so fascinating, but like I know in my own life, you know, I know when things are going when I'm relaxed. Let's just say I'm not stressed at a high level of stress or anything. I can go to sleep with nothing on. Don't need distraction. My brain, whatever I'm talking in myself,
Hmm.
is actually reflective in the world. Like it really is. There's a level of relaxation.
Yeah.
When I'm like higher stress, I'll put a podcast on. I'm making
Mm.
something to fall asleep, so my brain shuts off, pays attention. I can fall asleep. Um, is that? I mean, is that common for people? Like when you're hearing chatter
Oh, heck yeah.
that, and then also the
Yeah.
solitary confinement of being alone. Because I remember being the first time I went to a meditation, I was on a retreat out west, and they had us sit in the woods for an hour. I thought I was gonna. I was like, I can't do that. I can't. Or even going for a run without music playing. It's like I can't do this. I can't physically do this. As a kid, I had the TV on to go to sleep. I had these
Yeah.
things, and they diagnosed you as ADD and everything. But what I found is like, yeah, when I'm relaxed, I don't need these things. And with practice, I can sit there and it's all right.
Mm.
After the first 10 minutes goes over the wave, I'm like, all right, I'm okay.
Yeah. 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 There's real science around all that. And there's been tons of research over the past 20 years about the power of meditating. And it's uncomfortable for everybody at first. Like Peter, your experience is the same experience I had, the same experience that everybody has, that that thing inside that's so hard to feel and deal with, like that's not woo woo, that's real shit. Like that's the wolf. That's you feeding. When you pay attention to that inner voice of conflict that's telling you you're not enough, you're feeding the wolf of destruction inside you, right? And so the process of meditating is difficult because, especially at first, it's like your first push-ups are going to feel hard, right? You're developing a skill and a strength that doesn't happen overnight. People think because the mind, there's nothing sort of like you think of doing push-ups and you say, oh, you can easily imagine your body mass, and the difficulty of pushing that up. So it fits a physics formula and boom, like, okay, well, if I do this, then the weight will get easier, blah, 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 blah. The mind has equal momentum and weight and power and a meditation practice. And there's a lot of them. There's easier ways to get through, like a walking meditation. There's a lot of ways to kind of approach this space. It doesn't have to be meditation. It can be a lot of different ways to kind of get there. But what you're doing is just creating enough space so that you don't have to hear it fully. And
Crazy.
there's incredible research out there about how when you do that, it starts to create like when your mind is going the way you're talking about, like your body responds to anxiety by producing stress hormones, right? And that's what ages you, and that's what makes you, your cortisol flow, and that's what makes you feel like the world is overwhelming. Like one person's overwhelmed world is the same as the other person's world that they're totally at peace with. Like as humans, we have an incredibly high capacity for dealing with really hard stuff if we're clear and we know our why. And as an example, you know that guy who climbs, like he climbed a building recently and he climbs without any rope or anything, and he just like he goes up cliff, like that's his sweet spot, that's his safe place. And if I do that, I'm going to be freaking out. Like I'm going to be, I can't, I'd be like 10 feet up in the air and I'm coming back down, and he's like thousands of feet in the air. The trick, the power is in working through what feels uncomfortable and seeing past it. And when you sit in meditation, you're just going to have a full technicolor view of all the stuff that's pissing you off, frustrating. But the practice, repeated practice, helps to give you space from that. And that becomes incredibly practical, because if you go to a meeting, Peter, and you're negotiating a contract on a roof, right? And you're sitting, maybe it's like a team, like a board of directors, because it's an apartment complex, and and you're sitting there, and you know how it is, like if you're sitting and you're trying to find space to negotiate, but the ego kicks up and the negativity kicks up and the fear kicks up. Like literally your processor power up here is being divided into like 60% going into this meeting and your creativity and your negotiating skills, and 40% is fear, doubt, and uncomfortableness. And it's like, how can you function well like that? So one of the practical values of this process is that like it becomes 60% and you work and it becomes 70%, 80, like some higher percentage of your being is actually focused on not the ego, but what you're trying to achieve right now, right?
Yeah, so then you're able to focus in the moment. I'd say that to my wife a lot. Like I'm a probably typical male mind. I can only focus, as much as ADD or whatever. When like I have a task, I can't be thinking about worries. I almost have to like if I'm going into a meeting, I can't get that text right before about something, or else my brain goes like it's like, oh my gosh, like it's a whole other distraction.
Yeah,
Like, even the
yeah,
phones with like the texting and everything else like that. And I get, it's an addiction like anything else. I'll get caught up with I gotta answer this right now and everything. But for me, I have to like I have to go back. I have to almost compartmentalize it and deal with it later. Deal with it at this
yeah,
because like I feel it in my stomach. I do feel the pit in my stomach if I get a bad
yeah,
right before it. I can't just brush it off. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta, even if it's like a something important like a finance, but I can't do anything about it. I almost rather not think about it right then. If I can't
of course.
do it right then, it's a very hard, it's a hard, but I know myself very well, and I know where I got to be in business. I have to be focused on.
Yeah,
When I'm with my family. I have to. It doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it, but I just can't give 100% to it because
yeah.
my brain will go off into all these different directions. And well, I'm happy to hear that I'm not special.
Oh, no, no. That's the thing, that I believe in my heart that if you were to go back, however many, whatever your personal viewpoint of the origin of the world and earth and the first humans, that they were dealing with the same shit we are, right? Like it, and, like we talk about ego, and it's this, we have some understanding of ourselves. And if somebody offends us and says that we're not attractive or fat or stupid, and something gets offended inside us, like now we're distracted, right? And or if somebody says this, this loan might not come through, or the closing didn't go well, like our mind just goes from centered and whole and able to be in this moment, and all of a sudden our attention just goes, and all of a sudden it's like you're maybe talking to somebody, and God, like, here's where relationships are really affected, because you're thinking about the closing that didn't go well, and your wife's in front of you, and all you see is her mouth moving, and you're way over here. That's not good for relationships.
I had two situations like that where a text came in. I was going into a networking group, lunch, where I'm trying to, put on my, I'm worthy of doing business with you. Like I got to exude confidence and everything. And I got a text and it literally like deflated my engine before walking in. And I
Yeah.
know enough to know I got to snap out of this thing. I can't do anything about it. And I'm also very big with like, the serenity prayer and all that I
Yes.
like thrive in. But the other one, and then another time, then I was looking at a property, and I'm out there, and another text came in, and literally, like as I'm there, I am listening and everything, but it's like, and I'm a pretty energetic, a high energy person, and I really am. Like that's just like who I am. That's like my essence. And I was just like, not even. It was like I was an outer body experience. I'm listening to this, but I'm worried,
Hmm.
and I'm worried, and I hate, and that's something I still haven't mastered. But worry, I know, is useless. I know the things, which is actually pretty cool growth. I actually know not, it doesn't solve anything, but I
Right.
still, am in it sometimes, and it's like, it was like a deflate, and I can feel it's like an outer body. I'm not present anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my wife will call me out like on the phone if I'm texting, but I think I'm there with the family, but I'm still doing work. She's like, "You're not even listening. You're not even here." And she could tell I left the room.
You,
Even watching a movie with everybody, but I'm like, I'm just gonna get this while I'm doing it. It ruins the experience of shared experience.
yeah.
And it's like they can feel it. They can feel that you are gone. Your attention's
Hmm.
somewhere else. So it's a very big mirror in your face. I want to be respectful of time. We're at like an hour. Do you have any more? Do you have a little bit more?
I've got just a few minutes, actually. Yeah, and I
Okay.
would love to do another visit with you because we're leading a lot of meat
Oh,
on the bone here.
I literally didn't think about like how intrigued I would be because I am very passionate about what you do, and then there's the recovery side of it. Um,
Yeah,
I know you have a recovery program. Do you want to touch base on that briefly?
yeah. So um, a couple years ago, I was fortunate enough to run into a gentleman named Francis O'Connor, and he has the largest Facebook group devoted to the teachings of Michael Singer, the Untethered Soul. And right now it's called, so if you go to Facebook and you go Wisdom Untethered, Mickey's newest book,
Okay.
find this Facebook group. It's got 18,000 people in it. And as part of that group, he has a strong 12-step background. He's 78 years old. He's from Ireland, and he has stories that will curl your hair. I mean, he's just like, he's been through it all. And I come from the background of the Untethered Soul. And so together, we've been teaching a class that combines them, and we're creating, um, there's real power in the 12 steps. And the power is that you've got this repeating cycle of work that you do. And what I've seen from it is it goes deeper and deeper with every time you go through, start over with step one. And like that stage where you review and you do an honest and fearless evaluation of your soul and what's going like, and then you go and try to, like make amends with people. Like that is so good, right? And I found that structure, when put into like the context of the Untethered Soul, it gives you a process. So you're not just reading a book and setting it down. You're actually having a process. And that's what I do as a coach. Like that's why I do one-on-one coaching with people, is because you need a process. You need like steps of discovery. You need somebody to help. You need what's called a sangha, or a group, or a community, a spiritual group that supports you, because it's really hard to do this on your own. It's almost impossible just to, like, there are some great souls who come to earth with enough power to kind of power through like the conditions that we've experienced on earth, like you said, like driving through, the flat tire goes flat, the whatever happened. And like, so we need support, and that's what we're doing with this group, is combining the 12 steps with the Untethered Soul to create a process that we repeat. And if you go to that Facebook group, and if you go to timodavis.com, um, you'll see me. You can find me on Facebook, and I can guide you into that space. But we do that as a service, and we do it for volunteer, for donation based, and it's a really great, beautiful, accessible way to kind of combine the 12 steps and the work of the Untethered Soul. Because as we've discovered, the first addiction is to the mind, and if you're going out into the woods and you can't sit with your own mind, it's hard to sit with the world if like your closest advisor is not serving you, then the world's not going to work, right?
Tim, it's funny. You're speaking something that like I've had in my head. Like I really am touching my head. I had it up here. And I try to explain to people because like I love the teachings of Michael Singer. I love Tony Robbins. I love a lot of the spiritual paths, and I'm
Mm,
Christian, but like for me, a simpleton, that I said, and I've never been touched more spiritually, but it's the teachings of it. Like I'm integrating everything
right.
because of the 12 steps. It gave me someone that needed something to follow. Like I'm very
Yeah.
good if I have something to follow, but I can't put my finger on it. Like, even my Catholic upbringing when I was younger, like the fifth step is the confession. You're getting it
Yes.
off. It makes sense to me. The first
Yeah.
is surrender experiment, right? There's prayer, meditation. Like all my answers in life at some point come through this. And I'm with
Yeah.
a really powerful group that every Monday all we do is go through the 12 and 12 again and again
Yeah.
and again and again and again with a group that I trust. It's a group and it's narrowed down to some people that I really,
Yeah.
trust and I'm around. But it's like every time I do it, I'm hitting it from a different perspective in a different area of
Yeah.
my life. But like I think like meditation, like those we want these like magical huge steps of like this crazy thing's going to happen, but a lot of it's in simplicity and the
Yes.
fundamentals. Like learning to sit in the woods by yourself. It's like it's just
Yes.
taught to us when we're little, to go in
Yeah.
your room and be all right being bored,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, or these things, and I fought it. I wanted some other way of doing it. But I'm like, oh my gosh, a lot of life is just simple and doing the fundamentals. There's so many choices at the buffet. But when it
Yeah.
boils down to, it's how can I be at peace with myself? How can I
That's right.
share it and serve others? And a lot of that, if I master that in life, my
Yeah.
life will be all right.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to actually join that Facebook group and be a part of it, and a participant in any way I can.
That's beautiful.
Because I think I've been trying to, I try to explain it because I'm like, this seems like you're going, I went into it to quit drinking, but what I've learned is so, play better for life. And it makes
Yes.
going to church richer. It makes going out to meditation richer and everything. One other thing I want to do before we end though, like, all right, so for like, we all love challenges, right? That's
Uh-huh.
what we like. Give us a 30-day meditation challenge if we want to get started. Like, what would be a daily practice that we can follow for like 30 days, that you think would just,
Yeah. So I do. And I want to say one other thing too. It can be overwhelming. Like you really talked about how like as we start this journey, it can be really hard, right? And that first time that you sit and meditate, it's going to feel overwhelming. It does for everybody. The practice is to sit through that. And the beauty of this is that there's no there to get to. I just want to like take that out of the picture right now. Like we go into many of our endeavors as humans in business, life, love, whatever, and say, when I get here, I'll be okay. And the beauty of this is, Peter, that progress is joy. Like literally, you make one positive step with yourself, and the energy opens, and you feel good. Like every moment feels better than the one before. So it's a constantly building cycle, and so it doesn't take all that work to start to feel hugely better about yourself and the world you live in, and start to reflect that love on other people around you. They'll see a difference. So here's the challenge. Okay. Get up in the morning, you're going to reach for your phone. And instead of the phone triggering you to go into whatever, just sit for a minute, literally 5 minutes, and breathe. Okay. So do this with me, Peter. Watch this. Just breathe. Breathe in to a count of 4 through your nose. Hold it for a second. Breathe out to a count of 5. Do that like 10 times. Drink a glass of water. and now start to deal with your day. Literally drink a glass of water. It'll like, don't drink coffee first. Don't just get your body going, right? Every morning, and do that at night too. Start with that. And if you do that, you'll start to see the challenge, but you'll also start to establish a bookends, and that can grow. Now, if you go to my website, timodavis.com, I've got something that I've developed called a 3-breath meditation. It's a thing that saved me. I would do it every hour on the hour when I was in the work world, in the corporate world, just to reset. I would take a breath and check my mind, almost the same way you check an engine with a tachometer. Like if it's spinning, if it's near the red line, you take a breath so that you can kind of let it back down to idle. Because you know how it is when you're in the middle of the day and those texts come in and the closing is, and like it spins up and it doesn't want to come back down. Every hour you give yourself a chance to bring it down. So you check your mind, then you take another breath, breath number 2. You check your heart. You check your emotional state. Am I pissed off? Am I angry? Am I depressed? Am I sad? Am I just like, what's going on with this heart that is the source, my connection to God, my energy? Like, am I disturbed? And by just acknowledging where it is, you can let it relax just a little bit. And then because, I really believe that this is all very practical, like Peter, this is everything that we've talked about is incredibly practical. And that's why I fell in love with the teachings of Michael Singer and 12 steps. Super practical. The third breath is, what do I need to do to make the most of this next hour before I do this again? So if you're having a meeting, you have the meeting. You're not in the closing that didn't happen. You're not in this thing that's in the future. You're not in interest rates. You're with people and you're seeing them and you're being with them. And I found it important, just as in all this corporate world, to say, what is this meeting? What do I need to get done in this meeting to make it a success? I would just focus on something literally as practical as that and just clear all the junk out so I could focus on the business at hand, the business of life. Do that every hour. And the most important one is the one at the end of the day when you're going home. And you take a breath and you see, wow, I've had quite a day. You can almost feel exhausted because of suppressing all the anxiety and fear, like you'll be exhausted, like overly tired, right? Take a first breath, check your mind. Again, the tachometer. Not trying to deal with what it's thinking, but just let it slow down. Take a breath to let it slow down. Take that second breath, check the emotional state after a whole day. And then as you're putting your hand on the doorknob to go into your house, think of your wife, your kids, your husband, your family, your spouse, your parents, like whoever it is behind that door. How can I be present and loving to create the best possible experience for them? How can I'm a father. I'm not just for you. I'm like, you're not just a provider, but you're the leader of a family. How can I step into that role with clarity and purpose and really like get down to the why of why I'm a father and why I'm doing what I'm doing, and make sure that all the actions that come after you open that door are in support of that intention to be a leader in your family.
Man, that's powerful. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Tim, last question, let you go. What's Mickey Michael like out offline? Exact
He's
same.
he's a very powerful human being. Like when you spend all that time clearing out all the noise of your inner state, it just becomes this incredible strength. And even, he's older now than he used to be, and he's just incredibly driven and strong and sharp. That's it. Like I just feel like just incredible strength. He's a coach. He's a leader of a group of people, not because he wants to be and not because he asked for it, but people evolve and revolve around that strength, and it becomes an inspiration for themselves. And that's how I see him. Like it's a beautiful soul that we're fortunate enough to be around.
That's awesome. On and off. That's beautiful. Well, I love this, Tim. I could talk to you all day. I'm actually very invigorated. I'm excited we talked too, though, because there's reminders.
Good.
I've definitely faded off course on some of my meditation practices with the little one at home, and
Yeah.
all the busyness. You lose track of it and driven back by stress and thinking that stress is going to help you.
Yeah.
So this has been very, very fruitful for me. Hopefully for everybody else as well. And
Well, if you'd like, I'd like to help. I know this is my business, this is my life, this is what I do, and I volunteer a lot. And when people engage me as a coach, it's in support of my donation-based work and my free work. So, reach out to me. I'm at timodavis.com, and my email is tim@timodavis.com. My middle initial is Ordway, so it's TIMODAVIS.com. So
yeah,
that's
we'll put
that's
everything in the show notes too when we release it.
great.
So definitely will. And when you get back to Florida, if you ever want to make it over to the oldest city, and
I love St. Augustine.
we'll sit live. I'll buy you lunch, and we could do a live one. I mean, do it in studio too. So this was
That
great.
sounds great.
You were amazing,
Oh, thank you, Peter. You too.
Tim.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your trip.
I will.